everyone, this is Tom Morley with the last video in the tutorial series for Space Blasters 84. So in this tutorial we're going to implement the particle effects, basically put the polish on our game. And I could probably spend an hour on just particle effects alone. So I'm going to just show you how to make the particles for this particular game, and maybe sometime in the future I'll do a whole tutorial on different styles of particle effects. Okay, so let's get started. Let's open up Godot, open up our Space Blasters 84 project. Now before we start, I want to do a little bit of cleanup. I want to make it so that whenever we click the play project button here, that it actually starts running the game. And if we click it now, it'll error and tell us we haven't set up a main scene that should be run when we play our project here. So let's go ahead and set up a scene that will automatically load when we press the play project button. Go over to the scene, go down to project settings, and right here you'll see main scene and it's blank. Basically we want to click on that. We want to go to the file, which is going to be our our SB main scene. So go ahead and load that up in there, and you'll see that it's got the path to our main scene here. So if we close that, now I have not loaded up any scenes, but if I click the play project button now, you'll see that it automatically starts playing our game, and that's exactly what we want to have happen. So now anytime we want to play the project, we don't have to load the main scene. We'll just go ahead and click the play project button, okay, just like that. And this is exactly where we left off. You know, we've got everything going, kill our asteroids, score goes up and everything. But one of the things I didn't like is all of these zeros here where the score is and the high score. So let's clean that up too. So we need to go to the HUD scene to do that. So let's go ahead and open up the HUD scene. Open scene, HUD, open up the HUD scene, and we want to go to the script, which is right there. And wherever you see zeros in here for the score, we just need to get rid of those. So go ahead and get rid of all the zeros, and same thing here. Now if we save this scene, again we can just start playing the project. We don't have to load up the main scene anymore because we set it as the scene that will automatically load when we play the project. So let's play it and make sure that our score only has the running score and no zeros, and we see that that's exactly what's going on there. So, and when we have a high score, it's only going to show the high score, not any of the previous zeros. So that just a little bit of cleanup I wanted to do before we're finally done with this game. So another thing we might want to do is you might want to get rid of the information that's going on down here, and we can delete that too. So let's open up the main scene here. Open scene, and let's open up the SB main scene. And let's get rid of, let's click here so that we have the information here. And we need to get rid of a few things in here. We need to get rid of the label info node, which is that right there. So go ahead and make sure it's highlighted and hit the delete key and click on OK, delete it. And again, let's go back to the script for the root, and anything that made reference to the label info, we need to delete those lines as well. So let's get rid of that line, line 30. And let's get rid of this print start game. We don't need that anymore. let's save that and run it. Let's see what it looks like. Press enter. Our label is not there. Oh, but when we die, looks like we need to get rid of line number 45. Just trying to set our game over label here. Stop that so you're not hearing all the noise. Get rid of that line. Save it. And let's try it again. Okay, we're all cleaned up. We're ready to go. The only thing we need to do now is add the particle effects, and we can wrap this particular game up. So let's take a look at the particle effects now. The first thing we need to do is create a couple of folders to hold the particle scene and the particle images. So let's go ahead and go to our project and go to our Space Blasters 84 folder, and let's create a new folder in here. And let's call it particles. And in particles, let's create a new folder called image, so that we have a place to hold the images for our particle scene. And let's go to the folder that contains all of our source images. And I believe I've got it in my project folder, which we'll remove at a later date, but my source files are right here. There's my particles folder, and we need the fire particle and the smoke particle, so we can go ahead and copy those, and then we'll go back to the particle folder that we created, go into image, and we'll paste the two images in there so that we can use them with our particle scene. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's close the scenes that we have open so that we can start fresh here. And let's make sure all these scripts are closed here. I don't want any confusion on what we're doing. Oh, I guess I have to click OK there. Okay. So I guess let's start with the ship itself. The ship, when it moves left, right, up, and down, will actually have some particles that help sell the illusion that it's moving left, right, up, and down due to thrust. So let's go ahead and open the ship scene. And we have our ship here. So with the kinematic body 2D selected, we want to create a new node, and this is going to be a particle node. It won't be in the canvas area, it'll be in the 2D area, and we just want to add a particle 2D node. And this particle, if we move it down a little bit, you'll see that its default behavior is just a bunch of little dots that that due to gravity fall towards the bottom of the screen. So we'll probably call this particle up. So let's rename that particle to up. Now the particles have a whole bunch of different settings over here in the inspector that you can change to do all kinds of really cool things with particles, and you can assign images and a whole bunch of other things that are really cool. So I've already basically modified some settings here, and I'm just going to copy what I've already found out by doing some trial and error. So let's go up to the top here, And I'm just going to start from the top and move down. I guess I need my which I don't have it installed. I think my key monitors I'm just going to have to go without for right now. So the amount here setting is the amount of particles that you'll see falling. So if we move that up to like 100, you'll see more particles falling within the given lifetime of 2 seconds. So let's change that to, I know that I want it to be at 30. I want the lifetime to be about 4 seconds. So it's a little bit further down. And my time scale, I'm going to move that to 5. Kind of get some extra thrust or some extra movement, so it actually looks like it's under pressure and shooting right out of the bottom of the ship. I want to add a texture to it, so rather than just seeing these little teeny dots, I want to actually see a texture. So we're going to click on texture here, and we're going to go into the particles folder in image, and we're going to click on smoke. And you'll see that, yeah, I got smoke all right. It's just basically the square image instead of the little dots that are going from the top to bottom here. So we need to change some more of the settings so that it's kind of starts out small at the top and then spreads out like exhaust would in a spaceship. So we need to change the spread from 10. And if we increase this, you'll see what happens here is that it starts out at a given point and then it spreads out from there. Okay, and that's what we want. We want it to start out at a point and spread out more down at the bottom. And let's see what other settings I have here. Linear velocity is at 20. Scroll down here. Size 110. And we're going to change the scale from 1 in the X and 1 in the Y to 0.4 in the X and 1 in the Y. I'm like, I don't know exactly what I did wrong here, but there we go. That's exactly what I was expecting, is something like that there. Okay. Now, another thing that we want to do is we want to basically have some fall off. This, you get the square image all the way from the beginning of life till the end of the life of the particles, and we need to change that behavior a little bit so that I guess you don't see the squares towards the outside here. So we can do that by adding a color ramp. So where it says color ramp, let's create a new color ramp. And you'll see that it automatically goes from dark to light. So if you hit this little arrow here, then it'll bring up a color ramp for us, and we can do some cool things here. So we can take the handles here, move it up. If we white is pretty good there, but I would say that we want to move this one a little bit closer, and we don't want it to be black. Maybe we want it to be a reddish color. Okay, and also we might want to have some fall off at the beginning and the end. So if we click here and move it, we create another point that we can change the color or the alpha or the opacity of the particles as well. So if we bring this all the way to the far left here and we click on here, the color selector, we can also change the alpha here, or how visible it is, how opaque or transparent it is. So we're going to move that all the way down, and you'll see what happens is right here at the top, at the beginning of the life of the particle, that's where the left hand side of this color ramp is. So we're going to make it more transparent, actually 100% transparent, and you'll see that that change here near the tail end of the ship. But we also want it to basically fall off near the end as well. So let's click in the color ramp and move another one all the way to the right. Let's click on the color selector and make that one 100% transparent as well, and you'll see how it is kind of falling off there as well. And you can move these sliders around and try and get the look and feel that you're going for. The red is probably too red. You know, let's make that a little less. There we go. Something like that. You can play around and come up with your own colors for your color ramp and your fall off, but basically that's how you create your look of the thrust for your spaceship. Okay, so you've already created one node, which is going to be for the thrust down. Now we need a couple for when the ship goes left and right, and a couple more when the ship goes down, because we're not going to just use one at the top. We'll use a couple on the left and right that shoot upwards. So, but you already have one particle node already set up, so let's just copy it. Make sure it's highlighted, and let's come down here to duplicate selected nodes. So we'll click on that one, and we'll call this one left for our left particle. Now if you click on the move icon up here, we'll move this, and we want it to be basically on the left side of the ship. So we will put it in this area. We'll also select the rotate mode, and we'll rotate it, and basically just or we can hit the select mode with the arrow, and we can just use that to kind of get it where we want it to be. So now we have the left. We can copy that one. We'll duplicate that node, and we'll call this one right. We'll rotate it because we want it facing the other way. Okay, and we'll move it. And of course it's not 100%. You can do it by hand by trying to move it like this, or you can just go over to the setting here where it says rotate and put in 90 degrees, so you're not fighting it trying to do it by hand. Okay, so we'll copy that one, and we'll call it down left, I guess. And let's go ahead and create another one since how we're here. Call it down right. And now we'll grab this, move it up, and this one is the down right. Evidently it didn't take, so let's, oh no, I created too many, I guess, huh? I've got up, left, right. Yeah, I created too many. So let's get rid of that one. Just make sure it's selected, hit the delete key and delete it. And I got down left, I need this to be down right. Alright. Click on the selection tool, move it up. This one's the down right. And this one we probably do have to kind of manipulate by hand here. Make sure it's selected, hit the rotate, and I'll rotate it so that it basically is going to give me some down thrust. So let's select the down left, kind of get that where it should be, rotate it, and move it, and guess I want to move this one a little bit as well. Select it, move it down. There we go. Okay, so we have all of the particles that we want and the areas that we want the particles to be creating thrust from in the spaceship. But we don't want them all to be on at the same time. Really, the only one we want to be on when the game starts is the bottom thrust. And I like it to be on just for the visual that the ship is kind of hanging out in space. So we need to turn off the other particle effects. So let's select the left particle effect and go over to the inspector, and we want to basically turn the emitting off. Where it's selected and says it's on, you'll see when you turn it off, it's no longer emitting those particles. So we'll turn that off. We'll go to right, we'll turn that one off, and down left, off, and right off. Okay, and we're going to save the scene. And if we play remember that we actually made the main scene as the scene that will load when we click the play project. Even though we didn't load the scene, it'll still play the game. So if we play the game now, the ship should have some thrust at the bottom, and it does. And, so we're another step closer to getting the behavior that we need. Now we need to basically make the thrust show up or start emitting when we press the left, right, up and down keys. Okay, so how do we do that? We do that through the script of the kinematic body 2D right here. And you'll see that I've already created the actual code that we need. I've just commented it out, and rather than you watching me type all this in, I'm just going to basically walk down it and uncomment it and talk about it. So in our fixed process, this is where we have been basically checking for input for up, down, left, and right, and we have been moving our ship based on the key presses. So all we need to do is add the code to turn the particles, or sorry, not turn the particles on and off, but basically set the emitting to true or false on the different particles. So let's back this one up, and we'll talk about this. So if I'm pressing the up key, then I want to get the up particle. So get node up, which is the up particle here. Back to the script, and I'm going to set emitting to true. Okay, so now when I press the up key, my particles for the thrust up will be on. Now down, I have two particles for down, right? I have down left and down right. So I need to get both the down left and down right particles and set their emission to true whenever I press the down key or down arrow key. Same thing with the left and the right. Now, if I'm not pressing any of these keys, right, we put the else in here way, I guess, a long time ago when we created the ship scene. So if I'm not pressing any keys, my ship slows down. Well, if my ship is slowing down, that means that none of my particles should be emitting. So you basically have to get all of your particles and set the emitting to false. And that's all you need to do. And again, if nothing is going on, actually I think this code is for when the ship is parked. So you need to again set this is just my own preference. When the ship blows up and the ship gets parked ready for the next game, I just like to see the thrust for the ship going up. I like to see that on, so I set the thrust up to true. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And of course the rest of the nodes for the particles need to be set to emitting false. Okay, so now if I say save scene and I play our project, it should start out with the ship thrust at the bottom. When I press the space bar and don't do anything, of course there's not going to be any thrust. But now when I press the arrow keys, I get the expected behavior of the thrust from my ship. So there you go. There's the particle effects for the ship. We've got it, got that part of the game taken care of. So the next thing we need to do is when we actually start hitting the asteroids, we want to see a little bit of an explosion on the asteroids, or if I run the ship into a rock, we want to see an explosion for that too, I guess. Maybe not, we'll see. But let's do that next, okay? Let's take care of that. So we no longer need the ship scene open, so let's go ahead and close the ship scene. And let's make sure we save that script, and we'll close that script. And let's create the explosions for the rocks themselves. Okay, so let's create a new scene here. Let's add a particle so that we can create the explosion. So go ahead and add a particles 2D, and we want this to basically look like an explosion. So the default behavior of the particles not even going to come close to what we need. So let's change the amount. Again, I've already messed with this a little bit, and I've got a good place for you to start as far as the explosions are concerned. So let's start with an amount of 25. We want the lifetime to be about 3 seconds maybe, and the time scale we want to be about 4, so that it looks a little bit more radical. In here we're going to do something that's a little bit different. We're going to actually put a emission timeout. So if you put an emission timeout here of like 3, it will the particle effects will actually, you'll see the particles for about 3 seconds and then they'll turn off. So here where it says emitting, if I turn that to on, you'll see that it stays checkmarked for about 3 seconds and then turns off. You see that it emits for about 3 seconds and turns off. So we want that for an explosion, right? The explosion is literally just going to be something that happens and then goes away. So emission timeout of 3 is good. We want to have an explosiveness of maybe 0.05. We need to load the texture, which is going to be the red version of our fire particle. So now look at when we press the emission button, of course it's just showing the texture, and it's going from top to bottom. We'll change that. Let's go ahead and turn this emission back to 0 so that we can so that it just continues to go over and over again. At least you can see what's going on as I change the different properties of the particle. So let's change this to 5 and 5. Now let's go down to the spread, because of course the spread is not even close to being enough for us. We want it about at 180. So that kind of gives us a little bit more of an explosive type effect. And we want to change the linear velocity to something a little more radical. So let's change that up to 85, 185 as well. And the spin velocity, let's give it a little bit of a spin so that we can see that as well. And we need to change the gravity direction. We want that to be 180 degrees as well. We have a change that gravity to an 80 direction. emission, stress, and we want to slow down or put some dampening to the particle effects as well. Remember that an explosion in the real world is going to be hot, and maybe it will have a little bit of upward motion rather than downward motion. So let's dampen it so that it is like the explosion is happening in water or thicker air, so that it sticks a little bit closer together. I believe that's what this does. Yeah. So that it's not just flinging out all over the place. It gives us more of the look that we're going for. Now the initial angle won't be 0. We're going to say 1 here. And initial size, we want to start at the beginning of its life cycle to be really tiny. So we're going to change that from 1 to 0.2. And of course it's going to grow over its lifetime, so its final size is not going to be 1. Let's up that to 4, kind of give us a little more of an explosive looking force. And let's see if I change the direction speed to 0.6, the spread to 0.2. Spin velocity, we're going to change that up to a 1, kind of give it different randomness of spin rather than everything spinning in the same direction. That gives us much more realistic explosion behavior, I guess. So, all right, and I believe that's it for all of the settings up here. And again, to add a little bit of variety to the beginning and end of life, we don't want to see all the square images, right? So we'll do another color ramp here. We'll create a new color ramp, hit the arrow so that we can get to this color ramp setting. And in the beginning, we want that to be, go ahead and click on the beginning, we want that to be 100% transparent. And maybe we want to, I guess, tweak the colors a little bit. We'll color this maybe a red color, and throw another one in here. Maybe goes from, we don't want that one. Oh, and that's another thing, like if you left click and create an area where you don't want to transition, you can just right click on it and it'll go away. So we'll make this yellow maybe, and this last one over here, of course we want that to be 100% transparent too, so that we get the type of behavior we're looking for here. Okay, so we tweaked it a little bit, and let's click on the particle 2D again and go to the top of the inspector and put an emission timeout of 3 here. And what will happen is you're only going to get one explosion, and then it will stop emitting, so you don't get more than one emission. It just goes away. So, and of course, if this is not the type of look you want, you can always change it to a different texture. I've also tried this with the smoke particle, and that looks pretty good as well. So it just create whatever texture you want and use whatever texture you want for your explosions, and get the look and feel that you're going for. Now, I do want these particles, once they have been created, I want them to basically erase themselves from memory. So how am I going to do that? I need to do that by using a timer and a script. So with the particle 2D selected, let's add a timer node. I think that's at the bottom. Yeah, so I scrolled all the way down to the bottom, putting in a timer node here. And that timer node, I just want these to have, I guess, a lifetime of maybe 1 second. We'll put in a wait time of 1 here, and it's a one-shot deal, and I want it to auto start. So wait time of 1 shot, auto start. And what I want is I want that to basically be tied to the particle 2D. So let's make sure particle 2D node is selected here, and let's create a new script. And let's make sure that that script is going into our particles folder, and let's just call it particle. Click save, create, and of course we get some default behavior here, but in the ready function, right, whenever we create a new explosion particle node, it's not going to be emitting. So what we want to do in the function ready is we want to basically set emitting to true, so that when you create a new explosion node, you can actually see it. So I'm going to, in here, delete all of this information here, and I'm going to get node, and I want to get myself, right? So I'm going to get myself here, and I'm going to set emitting, which is right here, to true. Okay, and I save the scene. Save scene as. Make sure that you name it, that it's in the particles folder, and that you name it particle.scene. And we'll click save, and we'll play it. And you should see, yep, an explosion up here in the upper left. So let's just modify that a little bit, and let's click the move icon and move the explosion down to the middle of the screen. And again, scene.save, and let's play it. And yeah, you see the explosion right there. But I also need this node to be responsible for clearing itself out of memory. So let's click the script, and I want to tie in the timer node into the script of the particle 2D. So how do I do that? Well, there's a basically a way for you to plug in node connections from one node to the other. Remember, we did it before, and I believe in one of the previous videos. But let's select the timer. Let's click on edit the node connections, and let's click on the timeout node here and click connect. And let's make sure the particles 2D is selected. Click connect, and when you do that, it creates a new function in the particle 2D script called on timer timeout. So when the timer times out, it will call this function. So let's just clean things up, because I like to see it a little bit cleaner. And let's delete this code here. And what do we want to do when the timer runs out? Well, we want to remove this particle node from memory. So let's get the node, get ourselves, and we're going to use that. And we want to queue free yourself. Basically, I'm saying when the timer runs out, well, call this function, and let's remove everybody from our game, so that you don't have a bunch of explosion particles hanging out in the game that you can't see even while you're running your game. So there you have it. Let's go ahead and save the scene. Let's make sure that it runs all right, and it does run okay. So we are all set there. All right, so the next thing we'll do, let's go ahead and close this particle scene. Close scene, yes, and make sure our particle script is saved, and we'll close that too. So now I need to integrate these explosion particles some way in my game when the rocks actually explode. So I guess I'm only going to show the explosion when the rocks explode. So I'm going to create the explosions in the laser scene. You could probably do it wherever you want. You could probably even do it in the main scene if you so chose to do that. But I'm doing it in the laser scene. So let's go ahead and open the laser scene. And you'll see that I've already created some code in the script. So go ahead and click on the script and we'll walk through the code that I added to create the visual of the explosions on the rocks. So the first thing we need to do is we need to preload the particle scene, because I'm going to be creating instances of the particle scene. Right, I'm going to create new instances of it as the rocks get hit. So I've got a variable here that I'm going to call particle. I'm going to preload the particle scene, and remember, this is just going to be the resource path to wherever your scene is, and I put my particle scene in the particles folder. So if you for some reason don't type this in correctly, the Godot engine will let you know by highlighting it in red. So make sure that your path is correct, and it won't be warning you that you're using the wrong path. Okay, so now that I've got that preloaded, I'm going to create a few lines down here. First, I'm going to create a variable that I'm going to call explosion. Then I'm going to say that that explosion is going to equal a new instance of the particle scene. Okay. Then I'm going to get my root, that is my Space Blasters 84 root, and I'm going to add this explosion as a child of Space Blasters 84 root. Now I'm doing this because I want to be able to remove the explosion without, I guess, queue freeing other aspects of the game. So I'm setting this explosion as a root of my SB84 node root. Okay, that's why I'm doing that there. And I'm going to also set the owner to the SB84 root. Okay. Now, when I create this, I want to set the location of the explosion to wherever the laser is when it collides with the asteroid. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm setting the position of the explosion to the location, right? I'm getting the position of the collision here, and you see that right here. I'm getting the position of the collision. Once I get the position of the collision, well, that's where I want to set the location of my explosion, and that's what I'm doing there. And then last but not least, I want to free up my reference to the node that I created, and then I'm going to call QFree on my laser. Right, this is just to get rid of my laser from the game engine. So when I say get node here, I'm saying I want to remove the laser from the scene. Okay, so now if I've done everything correctly, which, you know, my fingers are crossed that it's going to work here, let's save the scene and let's play the game. So again, not play the edited scene we're working in, but play the actual game that we set up. So we'll play the project. Let me turn my sound, local sound down a little bit. There you go. So now we'll press the space bar to start, and when we hit the asteroids, then of course we're getting the explosions every time we hit the asteroids. So yeah. So you can set the opacity of the explosion to be a little bit more transparent. That'll give it a more realistic look, like you see in some of my intro videos. But yeah, that's it. You've done it. This is a completed version of the Space Blasters 84 game. All right. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you for sticking with me through the whole series. It was a lot of fun to make, and I hope to make some more here in the future. So again, thank you very much for watching, and man, if you like my stuff, subscribe and like it. All right, so we'll see you in the future.